Okay. I have I've been spending more time working on the stool. I'm calling it like a bench stool, a bench seat, I think is better. It's because it's not really a stool anymore. Um, for the dressing table. And I realized when I was working on pieces yesterday that, because this is some of the new stuff, that these pieces yesterday, first of all, we're not done in vain. I'm not going to use these for the dressing table. I'm going to use them for something else. It's a good design. I can use it. I've already uploaded. I think it was this one. Yeah, this was 4, where I realized I needed to have this back leg coming from this point instead of this point. So I've already made some of those corrections and uploaded this one to my computer, and I've pulled it in and I've started messing around with it. It's going to turn into something different, but I'm going to keep it. It's a good design. And what I realized was, especially with some of these, this open area here was just not, because I tried to like incorporate some curves here and then some stabilization, some foot. I don't know. I can't word right now. Yeah, menopause. It wasn't fitting with the dressing table that I had designed. And with a few changes, because I've laid in all the lines for this in the computer. I've changed this a little bit, and I've changed this a lot. But I went back and was looking at the pieces that I was using, photographs of the pieces I was using as inspiration. And even this foot isn't common. It's more of a squared off, or it'll come all the way to the floor, and then there'll be different bits of trim work that are more three-dimensional. A lot of them get kind of banged up and kicked off, and I don't know that I can do that necessarily for pieces that I maybe intend to give or try to sell. This works better. Does that make sense? Because of an element that I'll talk about in just a second. I ended up creating 7 new designs. And I numbered everything. I was also very good about keeping, as soon as I finished the design and cut it out, I'd do a quick tracing. So I'd have a second version that I could go back to. That, I think this is 1, 2. We're getting into that. This is in the 4s. This was an attempt to use something with something more curved. I got a couple of those, and then this is the final design I came up with, which I'm really, really happy with. And you can tell that it changes the design quite a bit if we look at these two side by side, because I wanted to show you. I mean, these are the drawings that I'm doing, and the measurements are close. They're not perfect because I don't have a perfect. My T-square is a cheap piece of plastic, and this is just enough to rough things in. This is not perfect in any such stretch of the imagination. These are usually about 1 millimeter off one direction and or the other. But you can tell with this one, it's 3 folds. They come together. This goes down, and then, where did I put it? I usually have a back piece. Where's the back piece? The backsplash piece. And you've seen this in my other designs where I'll put these together and then you cut them out and fold them and then glue them, and it's a little bit stronger because remember the super heavyweight board that I have these printed on, or paper that I have these printed on, is really nice. It ends up being more like carton board. So something like these two would go together, and this gets this down to 2 pieces total. which again is something that can easily be done. These tabs need a little bit of modification. They're a little too shallow or a little too upright. I need to make them a bit more shallow so they don't interrupt with one another. But you can see here, I'm drawing these feet again. And what really kind of like ticks me off is that I look at the examples and I go back and I'm like, what am I missing? What am I missing? If this table were far more leggy and open, say these had longer, there were some earlier examples that had longer legs on them and just like one drawer and another drawer here, something like this would have been perfect. But because of the hefty kind of chonkiness of this design, and then looking at the actual bench seats, it's like, yeah, I need to do a bench seat. So like I said, I ended up with this one. This is design number 7. And you can see with this one, these two fold in. These two pieces actually just get glued together. So they're kind of like faux tabs. It's just the tabs are visible. And then this is a back piece that I'll talk about in just a second. So let's look at the examples that I made in order. Okay, we have number 1. And you're thinking, why would you do this one? Again, I was looking at the pieces that I was using as reference. I was like, I kept saying, I need to look at the extant pieces. I need to look at the extant pieces. And I'm like, do I know what the word extant means? I looked it up. And it's like, okay, basically it's surviving examples. And in some of them, the little bench was something that fit neatly underneath the piece, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. I could do something like that. However, I didn't like the way it looked. I think it's too small, because when you look at it from this angle, it's like, it doesn't look right. There's something wrong with the proportion. And I know with this moves up a little bit, and there's going to be a drawer in here. This is not going to work. So we're done with that one. Okay, let's try something a little bit. This is, as you can see, number 2. I just used some scrap pieces of foam board to give these a little bit more heft, and you can kind of see, can you see the shadows there of where it is? And this is, of course, just the midline, so I know where I am. So you can see, this is better. And if we go back to the example, this was, if we go back to the example, I've drawn it out and done it in a pinwheel tab. In other words, every single piece attaches to the piece corresponding next to it. This can be a good design for some things, and I noticed it was Doris Lyons Howard used this method a lot, this going around. And I know that she was an educational artist and illustrator, so I'm wondering if this is creating more complicated patterns to use that children might need to learn, because as an art teacher, this would be complicated for some of my kids. And this is just making basically a rectangular prism, and or a just a cube. This would be more difficult to understand, difficult to teach than the modular origami that I taught, in which students were able to make rectangles and rectangular prisms and cubes. So I thought, okay, I need to switch the tabs around, because the tabs are just not going to work that way. So this one also taught me too, I move this back, that it was too low. It needed to be higher. Because if this is here, this means you have to sit further away. So it needs to be a little higher. And I went ahead and just made it, I think this was 3 to begin with, and I went ahead and made it 4, because let's look at my fancy, this was the first with the height and the depth. I just say tall instead. And then went through, and you can see I keep modifying them as I go. So when I got to 3, I got the proportions right, or what I felt the proportions were right. Okay, so this is This is number 3 and number 4. Now, I kind of messed around with these. I was getting ready to say farted around with these, because these were this I don't know if it's uniquely American to say that you were farting around with something, which just means you're not taking it very seriously. You're messing with it, or playing with it. And I wanted to see. I had been influenced by the great Aira of Bentley House Minis, Aira Bentley. If you really like miniatures, go check out Aira's channel. She is super duper awesome. And she works a lot with paper and cardboard in her construction. And you can see here, I've actually built out some pieces. You can see the shadow lines here. And this was that curve. And I decided I liked this curve a lot. I still might make a version with this with no trim work on the top. And this would be something that, let's see, I don't know if I have an example. Oh, I do have an example of this one. You can see in this design, I've changed the design. There are 2 pieces for the long pieces, the seat and the 2 short sides. And I've shifted the tabs to the outside. For construction, this is way easier, because this means I can glue together one side, leave another side open, and then if I want to put in things like board, etc., to stiffen things up, I have much better access than going from top down, going inside. I have a whole open side here. So I liked this a lot. I still like this design a lot. I like in that I like these little curvy bits. So there may be a version with this, or it may pop up as like a hassock or something, or an ottoman. Sorry. So there was that, and I kind of messed around with some. It's that paper that I like laminate together. Let me see if I can find a piece in here. Here it is. This is just 2 pieces that are glued together with watered down tacky glue, and they hold pretty well. I take little scraps and just glue them together like this, and then I just cut them into little strips and glue them around the outside edge. And you can see I've still got some problems with, I mean, this is a version that's not fabulous. So you can see I've got some bowing here that would not be happening. The reason the bowing is there is because I didn't back the paper before gluing on the foam core, the scraps of foam core. But I kind of liked how this ended up. I like this with some more dimensionality to it. So I think I may keep this design. I may keep these designs and just use them for something else. Morph them into another piece of furniture. Like I said, like this could be a little side table. It could be for any place, or a little bench, something. I can use it somewhere. I could fuse it with one of these designs and use it. So then we go on to designs number 5 and 6. And in these 5 and 6, I was kind of messing around with how high do I want to put the bottom portion in here. And you can see here there's much less bowing, and that's because I backed the paper with another little piece of paper, so it's not gonna stick out so much. And again, I liked this, and then I added the backsplash, or the back of the seat. So for this one, let's tip this up. Again, I like the proportion, but there was just something about it that's just, it's off to me. I don't like this. And I think there was a part I'd written in some of my notes that, oh, stop shaking, that this started to look more like a chest. Like, I'm thinking of like those hope chest kind of things, and sometimes they would have this little back, not necessarily a backsplash, but it would be raised back, and I'm like, okay, I could use this for something else. This design can be used for something else. And of course I can figure out how to take the top off. It would get a little bit more complicated, but I didn't hate all of this. Now I decided I needed to do, for the 6th design, one with the squared off feet, just to see what it looked like, because one of the extant pieces I was looking at had, this is in this Art Deco furniture that was sold in mass, not the super high-end stuff that was, you know, handcrafted. I'm thinking of the stuff that everyday folks bought. There were a lot of feet like this, and there was trim work that was running. It was very dimensional, ran vertically, and then you'd have this, and it was all wood. And that's one of the reasons I did this too, because I wanted to have something here to simulate what was going on. And I took the curves back up a little bit, and it turns out I didn't like that. I mean, I'm glad I did this, because again, sometimes you just have to have the things next to each other so you can look at them and go, I prefer this one. Because again, I was trying to get away from these feet, and then I got pulled right back in. Now, you'll remember the drawing I showed earlier. Sorry, I trimmed my nails and now I can't pick up anything. This is the 7th version. And I'm trying to keep some of the chonkiness down here. I made these a lot bigger, and in the final version I think these will be lowered quite a bit, so there's going to be a lot less space here. I'm working with bigger spaces here simply because I ain't got time to, you know, I've memorized what these are. 2, 3, 4, 9. Yeah, I don't have time for that. This is just a quick and dirty version. So you can see here, I made a template for this, so I could trace around it so all of these are equal or relatively the same. And this folds up, these fold around in tabs and hold on to the back. These two get glued together, and then these tabs are what's glued to the back portion or backsplash area. This I could very easily flip down and turn into something else, but for this first version I wanted something that held this to this structurally, and then this and this got glued together, if that makes any sense. So the 7th version I came up with is the one I think I'm going to use. And for this one, you can see I didn't add any of the extra trim work on it, partially because I kind of liked this shape as it is. I think though in the final version, when I'm talking about laying in the wood, I think there will be an added, like the dressers and having something going around it, and then more decorative piece here. Got a sneeze coming on. Pardon. But you can see here the tabs are glued in. This is glued together, and then this piece on the back is glued on as a completely separate piece. And I felt as though I didn't really need to turn down this piece, because if I glue this to the back and then there are tabs that are already coming back here, I think the only other thing I could add is maybe a tab on the bottom, which I could, but I don't feel like doing it. I've seen that done in some of the Madsen pieces that I've looked at, especially I think it's the grandfather clock piece, has a lot of little bits folding in and out and around, but I don't really feel like doing that, because I can make this the way I want to, because I'm not Hans Christian Madsen, Danish illustrator from the early 1900s. So I think this is the design I'm gonna work with, and I like the proportions on this. I like how this fits. It seems to go with. It's something that could be pushed up against. It could be pulled out and set to the side for someone to sit on. And I know I'm doing a whole lot of like thinking about how people would be using these pieces. But honestly, you know, these are the things that I think about. And when I had to work through the proportions, I had to work through the curves and figure out what's going to work and what's not. And I think now that this curve here is now going to be mimicked in here to pull the pieces even closer together. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I was also thinking about this back piece, and do I want to cut this out? And I think I don't want to, because this is not a piece that's going to be pulled away from a wall. This has to be next to a wall. or pretty close to a wall. So I'm going to leave it as is for now. So we have the design, and if I wanted to pull this piece out, I probably could design a slimmer one that would just slide all the way in, which kind of would be neat. I shouldn't tempt my brain on that one. But I think this is going to be the final thing. And now I'm going to be working on today, because I pulled, I took photographs of all of these designs, and I can now pull them into GIMP and get them corrected and filed. I did a bunch of filing yesterday too, with all of my different photographs of pieces that I've done, and I think that today I'm going to be working on laying in some line work and creating some Inkscape files. I'm trying to, I don't know, this is the part in creativity. I have scheisse tons of work to do still left on the children's bedroom, and I know myself creatively that it's like, I've done that, I'm kind of bored with that, I want to work with something new, but I really want to finish those and get them done. So I'm going to be, I've done some handwork, I have placated my handwork self, and now I need to do some computer work. And I think for going forward, I need to kind of try to balance that out, where I sit down and I have a puzzle to figure out, and I figure it out. I was very pleased with myself, my ability to switch between the different types of putting things together, and if I just fold this way and put that there, that'll work perfectly. That I thought was interesting. It's all kind of leading into my background with bookmaking and origami, and other kinds of paper folding sorts of things. So anyway, I'm gonna let you go because this has gotten outrageously long, and because you're you guys subscribe, because you guys know Marielle is so that's why I call these 1 to 12 ish. Marielle, a 12 centimeter doll, fits in here perfectly. Ooh, she's got something yucky right there. And here's a little Meloni sitting right there. So this could be something that goes into, and maybe that's what I'm doing. I don't know. My brain. Wow. Anyway, I need to go. Thank you for sticking with me, patrons, and I will see you in the next